All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Leading Crypto. It is the election day, November 8th, 2022. Once again, major week for not only Bitcoin and crypto, but for all asset classes as we are coming into some major times, right? Yesterday, obviously, was a lot of fun. Didn't start off that way, but the one-to-one in time and price that Magic Internet Money is shilled out to you all for years at this point. Did not disappoint to say the least. So we're going to take a look at that once again today. If you didn't watch yesterday's video, be sure to give that a look. We're going to take a look at Bitcoin as well, as always, SPX, a couple of altcoins as well, and just the overall markets. There's a lot of turmoil like wrapped around the news, right? That FTX is kind of putting out there. Luna and Terra Luna for one is giving everybody PTSD around this whole thing going on. So we're going to dive in, kind of take a look at everything from a technical perspective. We got some great open interest and order flow data as well. So if you do like that information, if you enjoy our content, please be sure to like and subscribe to the video. And we're going to dive right into it. It is election day, so you know that means Magic's going to be wearing his floral shirt. And we got the Vape God over here repping our number one sponsor, Huel, our unsponsored sponsor.
Vape God, I like that.
Oh, we got a shill in the mix here. It looks like.
You like that? There's a guy in the chat named Titcoin Maximalist, and that right there, that's name of the day. That's username of the day for sure.
What I sent you the other day, I would say that we were probably Titcoin maxis. Yeah.
Have you guys voted? It's 9 a.m. here. I've not voted yet, but I will vote today. Yes. Local elections here. Vote Mike Stevens.
That's it. All right. Matt, do you want to start off by taking a look at Bitcoin and SPX?
We'll dive in. We'll get it rolling here. We got 10 of you in here. We'll go ahead and rock and roll and get out today's juice. So yeah, I was obviously looking at the DXY here. I'm starting off with that. Obviously, we're going to talk about Bitcoin as well. You got to move down on Bitcoin and to move down on the DXY. But I think you have a really interesting pattern at play here. It's not a textbook one, but I like the structure. I want to take this low and then see if we can get a push up. Now, this is obviously saying we go to the high, but I'm not really looking for that. I'd be looking for like something like this, a back test back into this region. And again, continuation of a new trend that has begun on the daily, right? So if we're looking for that potential push up out of this, just from a market structure standpoint, that would just be a move back into, a lower low, lower high. Nothing has changed unless we break out of this and get back inside of our daily trend that's been a year long, that, you've only exited a couple times, but anytime you get back in it, what do? You pretty much cycle back to the high of it. Same with when you deviate the highs, you go to the low of the trend. So that's what we're looking at on the DXY. So just keep that in mind. If you're watching that, I think 109.61, that is coming in more than likely here, maybe today. And if we can get that bounce, we'll see what it gives us. So SPX wise, we gave you a level yesterday. It was the 2021 open because it really coordinated well with the Friday open on the SPX. Again, SPX bouncing, Bitcoin dropping. So the correlations here, that's why I always tell people correlation trading is not always the best thing to do. It can really lead you into marrying that price has to do something. So I always say trade the charts. They're individual for a reason, right? So if we look at the 2021 low or 2021 open, you opened up. What did you do? You back test, held as support, push right into the value area high. You've got the Q4 above you at 38.31. So if this is going to push and reclaim this level, you could be looking up to, not reclaiming, but pushing into the gold pocket here. So keep that in mind, and even then, this is a bearish trend. So you have to keep that in mind. This isn't changing anything. You're just trading this level to level for now until there is a more macro area to take a trade off of potentially. Now, Bitcoin was the juicy one. It's the one that moved the most, right? That's what everybody wants to hear about. That's why you guys are here. Bitcoin was pretty simple. We had been discussing this in the group quite heavily, that we were looking for the potential to backtest 20,688. And that was really just an absolute must-hold level on the chart. And you can see that you did get the back test of it here, and then rejection off the Q4, and then rejection off of, the 12M1, which for us, we actually put it down to the previous week open. I had given that as in secondary level to couple with the 12M1 here. Main reason being is after you broke structure here at 20K, right? So you can see you broke structure. You've come up, you've back tested into what is now another lower high. It's confirming a lower high in a series of lower highs, right? So bulls really, really do need to keep this from closing down below the structure here. Like you start closing down here on like a material basis, daily, weekly candles, things look like you're going to expand. And we're going to talk about the high time frames here in just a second. We're going to revisit some charts that I'd brought up back in June on Debate Crypto, actually. But we spoke yesterday as well about the single prints, right? So single prints that were in play, SP1, SP2, SP3, what did we say about these single prints? Even though they are separated technically on XO charts, it's one giant single print. You can see that right here. There's nothing going on. This is just a straight up move. These are hourly candles, So you came back to where our monthly and daily level gold pocket just beneath us. Overall range, TPO POC is beneath us as well. Let me pull that up for you, as those have not changed too much, right? So the only thing that did change is your overall volume POC. I pull it through ATAS. I just trust that data a little bit more. Did shift up to 20,300. That doesn't change anything really, but what it does do is tell us that if we come down to 19,150 and we spend too much time down here without breaking down, that's inherently a good sign. You look for signs of absorption at that point. But if this does end up shifting down with price, obviously TradingView has already done so on the 40 tick. That begins to look more like, continuation. And what I mean by that is lots of people are now trying to sell into that low. And a lot of times when you get people that say, well, if there's too many sellers into a low, you have to worry about getting trapped. And of course, that's true. So you do have to keep an eye on, things like open interest, the delta. But if you have climbing open interest, you have climbing volume, increased negative delta, and there aren't buyers there, to combat with that, to absorb those, there's no absorption taking place. That is when you start seeing those range expansions. And that's when okay, I'm not longing support this time. A lot of people say, well, we've hit this support so many times, I'm scared to long it. Well, the real simple way of knowing whether or not you want to long that support is looking at the order flow. So just keep that in mind. So if you're not studying order flow, especially if you're in the group, got to pay attention to these things, because they are in the moment. They're going to make those decisions for you. Nobody has a crystal ball, not even me. And that is what's going to aid you the most in this time as we come into important targets for the range. Now, another reason why I did like this move down was when we looked at it from an NPOC standpoint, we still have one. You can see October is naked. We'll just call it 19,150 just to, get everything married up together. So you would still be looking to see if that's going to get hit and filled. Obviously, it doesn't have to fill, but when you look at the lows right here that have not been taken, this whole move up, right? So you made your low, major low, major low, major low, major low, and this is the first chink in the armor, right? We talked about this, getting below 20,052 or 20K in that instance could lead to a cascade effect into the lows of the range. And it was, just one big candle. So anyone that was longing here, I think Max had alluded to it on his order flow breakdown. I'm sure he'll touch on it, but he had said, there's a ton of, high volume or high delta, positive delta here, and open interest was increasing. But it wasn't the strongest of volume coming in. So you would expect this low to be taken. It was a question of when. And obviously we pushed up first before just juicing it to the downside. And what I mean by that is really ramped up. So everyone that was looking for a bounce here just got fuel to the fire, just added buyers to squeeze out of their positions into these, more, I would say, logical and like natural targets. But you are coming back into that. I expect this low to probably get taken. Where would that change? I'm gonna get rid of these SPs. We don't need them anymore. You guys get it. You have to be looking at like your daily tools at this point. Very, very simple, right? I don't have the daily VWAP up. There we go. So you can see your daily VWAP right here. Technically, you did take this low already. I think this was, We were just arguing about it before the stream, 19,306.50. This is 19,306. So you technically have SFP'd that low. Max will go over the order flow on that, I'm sure. But if you were looking at this from a standpoint of structure now, you're looking at this like so, right? And you're saying, if this SFP is going to hold, I'm targeting the VWAP and the range highs. And then you get to play the game again of, you know, if I think that we're still going to make another low, you know, I don't want to be shorting here, right? And even if you're not confident in longing here, the better play, in my opinion, is just to wait for this. And if you can get that and you can SFP this high up here right around 19,840, you know, come up above the level, then give it back up, you have a nice trade back down to the lows, you know, because this can still pump up quite high. You know, we can get rid of this daily. I don't think it's going to be relevant for us at all. I had an alert there, obviously. And we'll get rid of, you know what, I'm going to leave that. But you got some things here that do make sense. You have the Q3 open and the Q4 open. Oh, that's below us. Q3 open is just above us. There we go. So if you were looking at this from, you know, do I have a level here? Do I have anything here? Yeah, and you have the potential to trap some, you know, buyers that think we're going to break back up and back test this. Now it may come through this level just like it might have done before, and back test old support. And we have not done that since a big move down, right? So if we root around down here and we make the move up, right, we do something like this, this is a good area to have marked off again, to look at potentially taking another short. So if we're talking about this in terms of scalp trades, you know, these are day trades. You guys have to remember that, day trades. So we're not looking to, you know, trade this all the way back down to, you know, 12 or 15K or anything like that. These, unless, you know, you think that's what's going to happen. But for me, those are just the best place to look for liquidity, to look for people that are going to be interacting with price. So it's below the low here, above this local high, or all the way back up here. Those are the only areas I'm really interested in getting involved in the price today. In terms of the macro, let's talk about high time frame stuff, enough with the low time frames, right? And I know you guys love hearing me talk about like the crackhead time frame and stuff, but we'll talk about the higher time frames here because I think that's going to interest people quite a bit. So
We love the crack,
I like
sir.
to use, yeah, everybody needs their morning fix of crack. We're going to revisit something that we talked about in June, right? So we talked about two things. We were working off of this one right here, the one-to-one. This was actually part of what made us think we were going to be making a significant low here was time. And we'll discuss the one-to-one in time as well. You had the 618 in our macro pull back from your, basically the inception of Bitcoin up to the 20K high. It's a nice Genesis distribution pull because that is a very clean structure that whole move up is before what you have now in this blow off mania style top, in my opinion. So you're coming back to the one-to-one. You can see how you are trying to hold it on a weekly basis. So 19,139 lines up really, really nicely with our volume and TPO POCs, depending on what you're looking at. Volume in terms of trading view, the 40 tick, so it is relevant. But time, we've spent the most amount of time right here, and you can see that. You can see we've come to this level and really grinded it out and made lower highs across the board. And so now it starts to look like if this is going to break, it could be, you know, I wouldn't say disastrous, but one thing to note is that you have two forks here, and these are just trends. That's all we're doing is we're identifying trends. And what I did to identify these pivots to see which ones were the best to use was it looks fairly obvious when you view it in this light, but they do have a reason. I was using our crab here, which I'll get rid of. I'll get rid of all this actually and just put on the harmonic part of it. So you guys know what this is. So you're looking for the back half of this. This is your overall trend after the expansion phase started of this prior accumulation range, right? You can see it's very, very well respected. You've hit the EQ of it. You've now hit the one-to-one at the low of it exactly. Like this was the exact low. So now we're looking at this and we're saying, what do we need to do? Well, we really need to get back inside of this trend, which you can see we're failing to do so. We actually back tested it right here on a weekly basis and rejected. So we need a new trend. We have to do more. So in this case, we're going to get rid of this. We're going to leave on these extensions. Well, I'll take them off for right now. And you can see we have an overall trend right? So this is all this is, Pitchfork we're just trying to identify trend. We're not using this to day trade off of. We're only using this to get a higher time frame, for lack of a better term, bias, which, biases can be very dangerous. But that is something that you still have to kind of hold, is you have to understand what's going on in the macro. And the macro is still down. Now you have an opportunity here to change that. But what did we do? We're looking for the one-to-one. This was our one-to-one in time, if you guys recall. So there's our one-to-one in time we were talking about. We had two macro pivots coming in here, the 618 on the 20th, and then we had July 14th. And we had said that anywhere between that little 3-week window, we were looking for bottoming price action, and we would go from there. So you are coming into a point where this is going to have to make a decision. So you have the one-to-one in time coming in, massive dump back into key support. So if that gives, I'm probably not going to fade that move. If I would only trade it off of this style of trading, to me, that would look like it wants to break down. That would be a bad sign. So that said, what would change my mind would be getting back above this local gold pocket. I mean, you're not supposed to use fibs this way technically, but they do work very, very well, especially on trend-based. And you can see that this is getting things well. You closed below this level, and it's also lining up with key horizontals and mathematical levels that we had calculated, in terms of pivots. Like, those are there. So you look at this and you say, you have to get back above this, and you're running out of room. Eventually something's got to give. And if we turn on the other here, so now this is where the full picture comes in. What do you notice? You've got your prior trend support. You have new trend operating as resistance. One of these two has to give. So the break of 19,139 on like a weekly basis versus the break of essentially, we'll call it 22K almost, 21.8. You've got to make a new high to change this trend, right? So you have to get back above this gold pocket. So if you're looking at things in terms of this, you would say, well, if we break this to the upside, the odds of us coming back up to this EQ are good, which puts you in that $30,000 to $32,000 range, right? The everyone's targets. Everybody has that target, which makes me think probably not a great target. Just like everybody has 10K on the docket. But I think it's gone sideways for so long. So many people that were married to 10K have kind of washed themselves out. It's been a very bullish sentiment for a while here at the lows, where people are looking at this as failure to push. But if we go back over here, how long did we do that for? We did that for quite some time. And we talked about this in the group, that it could take all the way through November for us to get resolution into that Q4. And so we are coming into it where like patience has really been the tough part. And, I always tell people I'm direction neutral. I don't really care. But if I had a bias, nothing has happened that produces that this is going to be the low just yet. You've got some signs of it. You've got, like, I wouldn't say it's 50-50, but it's close. 50-50 bullish, 50-50 bearish, right? So I'm short from up here. I'm holding my shorts from up there still. I'm not going to be opening shorts in this region trying to catch the remaining move if there is one. I don't think that's wise. However, if you have capital and you're not in a shorting position, you're looking for longs, it's not a bad place to look for longs. The thing is you have to be prepared that you might not be at the bottom and that you could see another 50% all the way down here to the trend basis, right? So for us, that's how I'm looking at it. You've got your local levels on the day trading side of things, right? We've talked about that. This would be an acceptable way to trade this. Look at this as an overall range as long as this low holds, and see if you can't take these range highs into the VWAP. If the VWAP keeps creeping down, obviously that's going to mitigate that whole idea, but it doesn't mitigate the idea that, you can still come up here, take the highs, and then come back down and make a new low. That to me would be the best trade, but sometimes that doesn't happen. It might just come down to these NPOCs and fill those out first. So, you just have to plan for both. That way you can make a good decision when it comes. You've already got the plan in your mind. You maybe even written it down. So I don't think I have anything else. Otherwise, I'll just keep rambling. It's been 18 minutes. So hopefully that made sense. If there are questions, just spam the chat with them. Obviously, we answer questions and do that type of thing. So otherwise, I'll turn it over to Max and let him, go on about his.
Sure. Most guys can't last 18 minutes, man. So, I mean, that was nice.
So I'm going to start us off yesterday, well, from pretty much the end of the stream yesterday. We had a ton of buyers start to enter the market. I say a ton. The CVD was slightly up. I know me and Magic stayed on the stream for quite a while after. I knew you took this trade because it looked like there was a lot of buyers coming in, which looked set to break the VWAP, which we had been stuck below for the majority of the day. And it did. But what it did with all the buyers that were entering, and as you can see, there were definitely buyers entering as the open interest was increasing, the CVD was increasing. It created a bearish divergence with, well, this high up here, to be honest with you. So what one would have done is taken a short, but I'm going to get into where the better trade would have been, because when taking a CVD trade specifically of bearish divergence, when there's buyers entering the market, what you have to do is you really have to put the buyers on the back foot. You have to wait for them to be underwater for then the for the confirmation of the bearish divergence to then play out. Now, if you were quick on your feet and as soon as you drop below that day's range, you could have got in there. It was very late in the day for me. It was 2 a.m. But in the morning, when I woke up, you tried to come back up as the day swapped over. You tried to come back up and get back into that yesterday's range. Now, LRA, locked in range analysis, the buyers that were in here, they just wanted to get out of their position because they'd been underwater. They'd been underwater for a couple hours there. They wanted to get out of their position for as less of a loss as they could, because when you've got to think, if they're in a long here and they've just seen their long that they're in go $200 below, as soon as price retraces that $200, they think I've won $200, so they'll get out of that trade for a minimum loss. Or if they're not active, they're not allowed out of that trade, as then price then quickly dumped. Now, it took the lows where I was looking for an SFP. I really wanted those lows to be taken and an SFP to occur. Now, you didn't get any sign to take the long at all. You had one candle where you wicked below and then bounced back up. It was very, to be fair, it did create a little battle in the delta where you had a neutral delta candle and stagnant open interest. But because the delta was neutral, you couldn't say there was positions changing hands in that candle, purely because the delta wasn't, if the delta was heavily to the red side and there was only 1.1 million open interest in that candle, a case could be made. But the fact that you didn't have that, really took away the fact of positions changing hands in that candle, and took away what you would want to see for the SFP trades for them lows. And then you had the quick move down, huge decrease in open interest, as a cascade of people that were long maybe had their liquidity a bit below the low, as it quickly triggered all their stop losses. Now, this was an interesting, as we're dropping now, actually, I've just taken the lows. All right, we'll have an alert going off there. So, right, I'll just go over this quickly, then we'll go over the price action. So as you came down here, really interesting, you actually had, this is where we had, what do we have here? We had the monthly, we had I've got a chart here. We had a daily and the golden pocket all in this region. And, it literally pinged it and then started to move away. And on the 5-minute time frame, after that candle closed, it looked like you had a load of shorters coming in. But if you go to the volume chart, you did have some shorters enter. But let me scroll back to where we were earlier. Yeah, here. You can see you had a really nice delta switch up. As you came down to the low, heavy shorting was taking place. And then delta stalled at the low. And as you start to creep back up, you then got your high percentages in your delta, which is what you look for in this chart to then take a trade and go with the trade, especially when you're getting a move off such a significant level. But then you stalled out. And where did you stall? Well, you came up to the single prints that we have. So, I say you came up to the single prints. We then, confirmed these single prints. Now, these single prints, really, I would actually look for them, because this here, where you've got this change here, this is just where one candle's closed and it's gone to the next. So as Magic stated when he was talking just before, where it's one continuous single print, but it doesn't show it that way. It's effectively the same thing here, because though it wasn't one quick candle down, all it was is you've had a candle close and you've gone on to the next one. And there's a daily PVA actually. That's quite interesting for the thing that I mentioned in the classroom for those in the group earlier. So definitely go and check that out for what I wrote in there when we have a daily PVA. But yeah, anyway, so I would really, to be honest with you, I'd be taken up to yesterday's low, and I would consider that as the single print that we currently have. But it's definitely the region and the chart that you want to get in and start trading in, and not lose these highs here, as Magic was stating. Because yeah, that would be a nice short. But if you can get back in these single prints, one can trade them to the upside there. So we go back to this chart and change the time back to the 5 minute. And then, yeah, what I was going to state before we just took this low was you had a ton of shorts enter right at the bottom, which is, it's what you want to see when you have trap traders. And then as you were getting the push up, you did have a lot of buyers come in, but unfortunately, they weren't able to really do anything. They actually rejected from where effectively you were bouncing from earlier, without being able to get back into this little range that you've been making this morning or today. Rejection comes, especially, I know Magic said, he mentioned in the group, we took the low. And we were debating before whether we took it, and it was literally taken by 50 cents. To me, I don't consider that a low to be taken. Reason being is I prefer if a low is to be taken, it has to come into the liquidity and really take a good grab of it. So looking at this volume here, 23 million. Okay, that's a considerable amount of volume there. Really high negative delta. A case could certainly be made in this kind of full positions changing hands. And the fact that you've got buyers coming on the outside, you're getting your buying imbalances now. If you're waiting for an entry, I would wait for this candle to close on said long, but one could trade it as an SFP. So the fact you've got the buyers here, you've got the buying imbalances, definitely have to wait another minute and 15 seconds if you're trading imbalances as your entry. But as soon as that candle closes, as long as your leverage is appropriate, you can have your stop loss below the low and really be looking to trade that, either to the highs where you had here, or if you really trade it as a scalp and you're unsure of the position and literally day trading, we like to use $69, $70 or $100 as your first take profit. And that really does lock in the profits for when you're taking somewhat more of a risky trade, especially when you do have targets to the downside, which Magic went over earlier, the October point of control and things like that. You can expect lower. But if you want to get into the trades, you can take profits quickly and get it off the board. But yeah, that's what I'd be really looking for now as this candle closed. So CV, I'm going to hand it over to you and go and see if I can jump into a trade while you're talking.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to look at Ethereum, FTT, Doge, Solana, and HBAR. Those are the chosen ones today. So we've been covering Ethereum at exhaustion for several months, obviously in this range here. The smaller range, the older one from last year, essentially comes up and has the value area high right here where we've hit our head on. Not really worth bringing it up right now. Another thing to look at this just in a sheer pattern formation, right? Anybody looking at this region, you could put this as a, bear flag at the high, very super, one of those overly obvious head and shoulders, I guess, if you want to make the case for that, which, when they play out, does, always give you a little tingly feeling, I guess. A little measured move brings you down to this region, which is where back to these highs, which we've talked about as well, being the overall local golden pocket, right? From low to high here, you can see how the golden pocket right here lines up with these highs, basically back at about 1390 to 1400, right below that $1,400, mental number, I guess, if you want to consider it that. But that would be the perfect measured move. So for anybody that got in on something like that, I can imagine that that's going to play out a bit. Otherwise, while we were up in this region, right, one of the major areas we were looking for was these, now it's tapped, obviously, but the untapped monthly key level. While we were dancing around this region, this was a major area to be paying attention for. Got the red line coming in here. This is the quarterly VWAP. Dotted line right here is the middle of the range. So there's a lot of support in this region right here, but overall, taking it down to this, 1390 upwards to, we were talking about it yesterday, about $100 window. That was the region for the pullback for ETH, which we've essentially made it most of the way there. I do imagine that, we got a case now to kind of come down and tag that the local golden pocket that I just brought up. I didn't want to keep it on here and distract. We had this region right here, which was our fresh entries, right, from way back when. For anybody that didn't manage to get in around the $1,000, $900 low, several times that we, lived in that region over the time between June and July, during this push up right here when everybody's getting really antsy and didn't want to miss out on the move. If you weren't in a position where you're looking to accumulate more, this was definitely the area that I was looking for. Obviously, we have a couple levels to the downside that would activate if we started losing our Q2 POC, right? 1221 essentially. But for now, nothing's really broken in the sense. I mean, essentially, you are putting in still a sequence of lower highs across the board. But in the meantime, coming down to this region still wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary, unexpected, non-technical, very technical purpose to come pull back to that local golden pocket at 1390 to 1400. And from there, kind of see how things are looking, right? With Bitcoin coming down this low as well. It's at least bounce territory for short-term positions, I would imagine. And then otherwise, it really does still come down to 1221 is the line in the sand. It's going to separate us from essentially this untapped daily down at 1032. Otherwise, get the claim and really take over this 1641. We still have the untapped weekly and our monthly key levels up here, overall range high. Nothing really changed there, right? So just kind of got the moves that we've been, anticipating now for the last few days as we've just we were kind of ranging around, of course, on the one-to-one. So FTT, I wanted to bring this one up again. We talked about it yesterday. So scenario in play, right? For anyone looking at this, just as far, we're looking at a possible descending triangle, right, or falling wedge, depending on how you were going to angle it, I suppose. But as far as a pattern would go, right, bearish setup essentially, you'd have a measured move basically down to like $6 in that region, right, $6-8. There's obviously no support below us until at least this little cluster, like $10 to $8. But I was pointing out a couple of things yesterday. We're going to touch back on it, right? So one major thing was this is on the daily time frame now. So you had really held this level quite well, basically since last year. This is back in February of 2021. So we're going on 2 years almost, right, that we were holding up in this region. So if you were to look at this in the sense of a range, right, we had a pretty much a high time frame range here. And the one thing I pointed out yesterday that you really didn't want to see was that the point of control is basically at your value area low. So losing that was twice as bad as normal, right? So obviously got the dump right through there. And now it's a situation of where could this go? One thing to just note on a high time frame base, obviously you could come down. We could very well come down to this region and get the bounce. At this point, you'd really want to see a reclaim back into this region as far as for any more upside if you're going to have it. But one major area does come into play now that we're there, and then is this untapped yearly key level. So this is the average price basically of all of last year that we did not backfill on the way up, right? So this is $4.55, which just so happens to be the global value area high, right? So the global range high, you can see how it maps up right here. So this is all price action for FTT. Essentially the majority of volume took place down in this region, and you got the range high coming up right at this area. So coming back, doing something like this, right, is very possible. And that's all the way down to $4.48. And that would be a totally technical move at this point, right? So news is going to, really play a huge fear mongering role in the whole scenarios, of course. Terra Luna is a big thing that I think that is on everybody's mind when you have things like this start to occur. Coinbase, just want to throw this out there. Coinbase, not that, the Coinbase stock itself, I think, obviously had a really big pull crash basically from the highs last year. But, they had a lot of news around that same time where it's like possibly going on bankrupt and this and this. I don't necessarily know that these guys are going to disappear, but whatever. Obviously, that's the risk we all take. But as far as looking at this chart, Yeah, that's a devil's basement, right? Which we refer to quite often for a lot of other assets. I mean, just from the breakdown of yesterday, that's an 80% drop, which is totally in play in my opinion. Okay. I didn't get the chance to heavily update this and throw it in the group yesterday, but like I said, I mean, at clear cut at this point, you're diddling in the middle is as far as if you're going to try to, put in some short-term trades on this. The short obviously was the better move once we lost the overall value area low and the point of control yesterday. So yeah, I mean, I'd really just at this point just see how this plays out. I mean, this area right here would definitely be a very big area of interest if we come down to it for major bounce opportunity, right? Or we'll probably actually come down and consolidate there for a bit if it happens, right? Turn this around, reclaim $22, then it's a different story, right? Because we do have a couple things we left behind up here, just in a quick fashion here. You got an untapped quarterly key level, then you also got another. This has actually been tapped, so this is more of a a broader target in the short term would be up to $29. But yeah, that's what I'd be kind of on the fence for with FTX or FTT, and just really wanted to hammer home that that's we've seen the same thing in Bitcoin actually, right? Bitcoin Magic had presented this to the group back pretty much when he joined, right, in December last year, that Bitcoin had an untapped yearly key level as well, right? So this high time frame average of price that we left untapped from 2020 for Bitcoin, which is basically 20,688.50, which has played a huge role in our most recent price action over the last few months. But when we're at $52,000 on the way down, that was one thing that we were looking for, and I mean that was at the time just as much of a drawdown as this, and it took a lot of time to get there. So it's just something to keep in mind. All right, Doge. Not going to spend a lot of time on this, not because everybody's trying to trade this or anything like that, but we did really identified a big opportunity with Doge several months ago, honestly. And one thing was the reclaim back into this range where we had some major targets, volume target back up at 14 cents. It was a pretty decent 70 to 80% climb. And then once we actually made it into this region, we identified some other things at play as well. So right, so in the group, right, for anybody in the Leading Crypto Discord server, right, you can see here a week ago, November 2nd, right, we were identifying that we had the SFP into the weekly. We had a new untapped monthly coming in at 11 cents, right? That's right where we were here as we were coming in. Excitement was high. Elon's taking over Twitter. Doge is going to be the next dollar. All those things, when at the end of the day we had this run up, you had this wick high, basically taking out the early shorters before the actual move gets underway, known as the SFP, right? Come down. Also identified that we had this bearish bat that finalized right there at the same time, and started to kind of put things together, a little bit of confluence across the way, right? So we were looking for a move like this, a little staircase down. Once again, this has taken almost a week to play out. You can see how the entire market has obviously shifted from super bullish to super bearish in that time. Obviously, at this point, everybody's shifting very bearish, and it's too late to kind of be in positions or shift your options if you haven't already put your bets in. But for this bat, we got the target of the B leg down here, which is the low to high golden pocket. We got the daily level there as well. Pit stop was going to be this untapped monthly. And we have essentially basically come down to those targets. So bounce territory, in my opinion, is just below us here. We haven't necessarily met the target in whole yet. That is basically at 0.087, 0.089. I just bring this up a lot recently because obviously it's got a lot of people's attention on the move up, but the news right here is what got everybody to hold the bag, right? This was Elon's taking over Twitter. Let that sink in. Blah, blah, blah. And everybody was, going super long right here, this and that. So just want to really point that out. Super technical move also, both of these, right, on the move up and the move down. So we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, I still would imagine that Doge is going to at least come back down to 9.1 cents, come back and at least test the high right here, that B leg at just under 9 cents. And you might as well just come down and take out this golden pocket as well. So this would be an area to, pay attention for a next short-term move. Or if you're somebody who's just, loading up for, long-term Doge bags, I suppose. Solana, right? So Solana and H bar. I just want to touch on these two. I'm going to take a look at the daily charts here because we zoom in quite a bit, but I do want to point out a couple of things. So Solana is in the same court, I suppose, under Sam Bankman-Fried. So it's kind of like, heavily associated with him and FTX and, everything of that nature. Solana, the same thing right here. You know what news was breaking for Solana? That they partnered up with Google Cloud Software. Same thing, right? What you were really doing, you came into a major volume target, right? This is when you want to, at least take some profits and hedge against, the possibility of a pullback. At an untapped quarterly key level right here as well. We did actually kind of front run the point of control, so that untapped quarterly key level would have been the major target we were looking for. But this cluster right here was the area, right? So you got the golden pocket, POC, and then the untapped quarterly. Where are we now, though? So we're back down. We wicked all the way through. So now let's just on a sense of just, you against the market. When you think about you trying to take somebody else's money and vice versa, what just occurred, right? So this was a level that, if you're not taking care of your position along the way, this is where we entered on some short-term positions. This is where I actually picked up a couple of, mid to long-term just spot holds, but on a short-term, trade, this is where, got in, and your stop loss essentially would have been on a tight one right below the range low or below this low over here, right? So look at what we've done now. You come down, basically just like Max had alluded to earlier, it's a liquidity grab, right? Because now this is where everybody's stops are, and you just ran everybody out. That's basically been in from here, possibly even in from all the way over here. It's very interesting to note. And at the same token, now we got back into the range, right? And this is a 4-hour time frame. So when you see things like this, it's a lot of times this turns out to be when we actually start running it back now, right? So obviously you still want to be paying attention. Don't get too excited thinking that it's just going to go straight through, straight up. Start losing this area. It's something you really want to be actively, managing. But this is exactly why, we had a monthly level right here. Take profit 1, take profit 2, take profit 3. This is a big one if we made it there, and we technically didn't necessarily hit it, but either way. And for that reason, you protect yourself, you come back down, you get all the way stopped out. Now you still have, it was a winning trade regardless, and you can just re-enter right on the confirmation of the range reclaim. Another thing I want to point out is just without looking at range data and just kind of taking this as, something that many others might even just be looking for is that, on a daily time frame here, we've got some pretty decent bullish divergence popping in on a daily, right? So you got lows, lower lows, and you're putting in higher lows on your RSI, right? It's not necessarily confirmed by any means yet, but on a daily time frame, this is what you want to start seeing, especially for a major reversal. So something to kind of keep in mind. This is on both Solana and H bar on the daily time frame. And right now Solana is essentially, wick down, living within the range of what you want to see. From here, you could very well take a position in this area, both spot or short-term trade, and just once again have your stop loss set in place below the lows, and just kind of manage that out from there, right? So depending on the market right now, obviously I know people are a lot more worried about things just kind of nuking straight down. Very well could. So, a spot position might be a smarter move, just, so you don't have to have the leverage sweats overnight. But these are also the times where every time we get to these positions, right, when it's the best time to get involved, put on some risk. It is the scariest time, right? And everybody's really on the fence, really nervous. There's a lot of bad news always surrounding this region. Just as the news comes in right here to make you hold the bag, the news comes in right here to make you, not get a bag. And it's just the same thing over and over and over again. So regardless, I think there's an opportunity with Solana still right here once again, and take it back up to the point of control. We get smacked down again. It is what it is, and that's why you have to take care of your position along the way, right? So it's the name of the game. Many make the mistake of just buying here, no stop loss. I'm just gonna get liquidated and risk it, and I'm gonna cash out only at the high. That's not necessarily the best play, right? So got a good look there, in my opinion. News aside, H bar. Right. So another really nice, opportunity, I think, to be had. I've covered this quite a few times as well. Got a really big range ahead of us. We were living within this region. And once again, on a spot idea, coming in at these lows is, an area where you want to, consider, getting involved. The only issue is when you start losing the lows, which we've done now. Right. So we're actually living below that quite a bit. This is on the daily. So if we go to 4-hour, you can see how, this is not the best thing you want to see right here. So essentially, you want to have alerts here for spot positions to let you know you're losing the low. You might want to consider cutting your loss here and seeing how things play out. And in that sense, you might, yes, miss on, if you cut your bag and we just come back in, we re-enter. Yeah, you'll miss out on that 5 or 6% move. However, this has a really big opportunity to just nuke straight down, right? So you want to protect your capital. That's the key. So getting back in this region, getting the reclaim, closing back inside this area is the idea. And that's just on the range, side of things. If you're looking at things, once again, just kind of from a daily level, little divergence idea, you also got, for anybody that's wanting to put a little pattern on this, right? A little falling wedge, essentially. Just for S and Gs, okay? You could look at it a couple different ways. I'm just throwing out an idea, right? So you got a, overall, you got a golden pocket would be your, overall major target. And depending on where you're looking at that from, you could pull it from this high right here, go to your low. That pulls you right back. Perfect target, comes in right at the point of control. If you had this descending falling wedge, everyone look at it, whatever. Falling wedge target's going to be your golden pocket, which literally lines up with the point of control, right? So you can see how that kind of aligns well. For now, you'd really want to wait to see that reclaim unless you really want to get risky right now in the sense of a pattern idea. When you zoom this out a little bit to the RSI as well, right? So same things kind of come into play. You got lower lows coming in price action while you got higher lows coming in on the RSI here. So on a daily time frame, what you want to see, this is, the recipe is here for a really nice reversal. Just might take some time to get there. At the same time, you really got to realize where you are in the chart. We are living outside the range. You're losing your recent lows. So, I mean, it's a time to be cautious, but it's also a possible opportunity to put on some risk and have a really nice, play right here. Because if we do run it back, and not even from where we are, just from the low to the point of control, possible 50% move without leverage. So those are the things I'm looking at, obviously, amongst many more. We post tons of these setups and ideas in the CBO updates and Magic's updates. I see Magic's probably going to bring up Matic and a couple other altcoins here. So, Magic's not always just talking about Bitcoin, and he does bring up a lot of really great high time frame opportunities with a lot of the altcoins, right? So, yeah, that's about all I got for the alts that I'm looking at. Magic, if you want to step in and go over those two charts, or if you wanted to, feel free.
Bueno. Sorry, I had my phone going to listen. For whatever reason, it's saying my restream connection stinks, and so you guys are like super choppy. But I just listened on my phone, and it's fine. So I was just I'm a couple seconds behind you guys, but turned it off for this purpose. Yeah, so we're going to take a look at Matic and Q&T. I think that's two coins people are interested in. They think they're doing interesting things. So you can see we're hitting the session VWAP. This was actually my second take profit. It was 19,444, just front running it a little bit. On that trade we talked about earlier where Max is going over the order flow, we did just take the overall low. We said we only want to get involved here or up here, and what did we get? We got a nice move. So good day trade. But over to Matic. So Matic's one that I've been looking at in log scale predominantly, but linear is it's good in linear too. Like you can see, there's plenty of respect. It's just I think log is just a little cleaner because this asset has moved so aggressively. So you've come up into resistance. I would prefer an SFP type of trade, but you don't always get what you want. We talked about this in the group. This was a really nice one-to-one in time and price, which would have been a secondary impulse ABCD. Not as clean. Even if you were to use this though with the 886, you'd be doing okay. Like I usually box this off with the 886, a little tip and trick on an ABCD, guys. And so what do I mean by that? By an ABCD, this pattern here is what we're talking about, right? So we're just talking about an A, B, C, and then like a D, right? So we're looking for something like that. In log, it looks kind of wonky, but in linear, you can see why it makes sense, right? I think it's right here. And you can see why we'd be looking for that. It's a perfect one-to-one extension, and both time and price is pretty clean. So you already had that. So the question becomes, do I want to buy Matic here? Well, that's really up to you and your risk tolerance. My entries were from this demand box. I actually posted it on my Twitter because I think some people think I'm just making it up sometimes. But, back in May and June, I literally said I'm picking up Polkadot, I'm buying Matic. down at the daily demand 2. We were coming into it right here on this drop, and then we finally dipped into it. So I'm not looking to add to Matic at $1. It's just not enough value for me. If I was looking for Matic, we may not get it. You have to be comfortable with that, meaning that if I don't get to reinvest some of the profits that I've taken into this box, I don't get to in Matic. I put it in something else. But I'd be looking down and lower, taking this overall low right here and probably challenging into this area and then evaluating between 77 and 79 cents. I think that would be an acceptable area. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that you could come all the way down, right? You could come all the way back down to these lows. So that's why I say make sure that you understand what's going on. And how did we derive this as a structure? Well, you have potential for harmonics all the time. They're almost always there. When do they become actionable? Well, a lot of times we need structure breaks, but they do help us identify where the structure break is going to be. And so in this case, if there was going to be a structure break, which I don't know that this harmonic is going to hit, if it is, it's going to take some time. You'd be looking for something like this, which is a bat. And we talked about this in the group 0.5 to 0.5. It looks a little wonky here because you're in log scale and linear. It looks much cleaner. But what does it tell you about the B leg? So this is going to be where you're setting up shop in terms of range, right? So this is just a structural look at it. We're not doing anything too crazy with volume. Volume is very, very useful. But sometimes you can get away without, having to use too many things. But you can see that this is a nice structural range right here. So if you find your way back into it, this would look like a deviation. And then, you could pull up the volume and say, I'm going to scrap this whole idea. But it did serve me in identifying that if we lose this pivot right here, which you've already back tested, at a minimum, I am looking for this to get challenged, maybe even make a new overall low, which would be taking out this C leg here, potential C leg. That's how I'm looking at Matic. I'm really not interested in buying right here. I understand it can go a little bit higher, but again, you guys have to look at the risk to reward on chasing some of these things and say, is it worth it to chase price right here for like another 15 cents? If it's a day trade, it's different. Obviously that implies that you've worked out your risk management. It implies that you've worked out position sizing, all that stuff. And you have a stop loss, most importantly. If you've done that, then yeah, I'm not going to stop you from ever trading. If you take a loss, you just need to figure out why you took that loss and why, the trade didn't work out. Sometimes it's just statistically built in. Sometimes you just lose trades. You did everything right. The entry was good. The trigger was good, but no trading method is 100%. So, that can happen. But if you're going about it that way, then by all means do what you want. But if you're just buying right here, hoping that this is, the low and that it's going to keep making a new high to $1.40, it's like, it's not a great R to R, man, because price can definitely come back down and fill in some of these lower levels. And then you are looking at this as, what if it does take this, this low here or this low here at C? I mean, the drop can be a pretty decent sized drop. And then we're just looking at this from a structure and just saying, where did things shore up? And you would be looking as a range deviation. A lot of times you'd be looking for an overall rotation. You'd be looking back at like 50, 60 cents, So that's why I say be cautious with some of these coins where they are. This thing has been running pretty hard, and it's done so in an expedited manner, really. So this is an area to lock in profits, maybe even head short if you're confident and you have good risk management. Again, this comes down to trading, and if you have a plan and you have all the other requirements to trade, then you can definitely participate in that. Just blindly doing this because I put a box on the chart. And it might serve you well for a while, but eventually I'm going to be wrong and everyone's going to get burned in that instance. So let's take a look at Q&T. Q&T's got some pretty clear targets for me. So this is another one that we've been looking at in terms of harmonics, because this one did front run my target by a few days, but it did hit perfectly. Then we've come into this target, which it blew through a little bit. I wouldn't say it blew through 221. What's the high? 228. Yeah, 228 is the high. So nailed the top. We had support right here, structural support A and C leg, right? And we're just looking for, again, harmonics are showing us where the structure pivots are inside of a range. It's just helping us kind of navigate where are the material closes at. So if you're closing below this box, I think that you've got a speed bump here at the B leg pivot, which is also like a local gold pocket, right? So you can see that right here. It's high to low. You can see that you've got your gold pocket, which you should be coming into here shortly. However, the overall target on something like this after breaking down, is the B pivot first. I think that's a speed bump here. I think that you've got unfinished business beneath you. You've got an untapped quarterly pivot, statistical target. We've got a Q3 NPOC here. We've got a gold pocket, and then it's backed up by an untapped level of horizontal support. So for me, I'm not looking at QNT necessarily at the speed bump zone. Maybe I take it for a day trade. I don't really day trade QNT though, because they don't really offer isolated leverage on there. And if you're day trading, to me, like, I think you have to be more of a swing trader in terms of spot on these altcoins, but it doesn't take much. So I'll be picking up QNT in this box potentially. If the reaction's good, get some kind of an entry trigger, like we did here, nice swing failure pattern of the lows and then a reclaim of $48. Yeah, if we get a similar structure off of this, I'm interested in getting involved again. But that's what I've got on QNT. Very, very simple. Like we can keep this as simple as we need to, especially if it helps people kind of keep up. Not too many acronyms, things like that. But yeah, QNT, if I was looking at it, I think it's got more to go. It's 147 right now, unless it does something crazy, like pulls back above this support, which could happen. Anything can happen. We have to just understand that. But if it pulls back above 160, we'll call it that, and lives above here, yeah, then you might be pushing, back inside this and forming a bigger range right here. But one thing that we've alluded to on this asset over time, and this was covered back in this was covered all the way in the spring. So you had a really, really thin volume profile here, and you can see it's starting to finally fill out, and you're finding your way back into your macro volume profile, which obviously the global's all the way down at 40 cents, but you've got a nice high volume node where right here into that gold pocket. So now we're looking at things in terms of, confluence and saying, what's the most logical thing? Well, if we're not holding the value area high as support, which is also our structural pivot from our harmonics, we're looking down to what? Our statistical targets, right? We know high likelihood we're going to fill those out because that's why they're statistical targets. Sometimes they take time because they're high time frame targets, but it now lines up with even, high time frame and local TA says this is the best place to be looking for entries again. If we don't get it, you guys have to understand, you have to be able to take trades when they're available to you and on your terms. So that's the key to trading is, not just risk management, but being patient. Now, we've identified the best possible trade to take. We don't always get the best possible trade because we get antsy. People buy right here, and then they might get a bounce, but it may come down to here, and this is where they end up selling to you. So you do have to kind of keep your wits about you in the sense that your invalidations are very, very clear. So if you can do that, I would just say you're probably going to make a lot more money than you think, over time. It's a process, it's a very painful process for some people, but it is a process in general. So that's how I'm looking at QNT. It's just very simple, very, cut and dry. I don't think I have any other alts I want to cover right now. No, I really don't. XTZ is going to disappoint me. I think I was talking about this one. I think this one's going to end up disappointing. If Bitcoin makes new lows, and we did say that this could come down and take the lows, and that would be a great entry trigger if it taps this right here, because this is technically untapped, this 12-1 right here, I think. Nope, it got tapped right here. Take that back. However, you are at the overall structural range low. So if we start seeing a reversal out of other markets, this looks like a area to get involved. However, if you don't, you can't just hold this right here hoping that, this is the overall bow and that we're gonna moon from here. You have to be either willing to have a stop loss and cut that trade, or accept the possibility that it comes down here and probably takes this local low at 72 cents. That'd be worst case scenario. So that's all I've got on. And look at this. What's the trigger for the long here to the upside? We said it was going to be getting back above $1.59 because we were being a little conservative, but you had the Q3 NPOC coming in right here, $1.51. Pretty much tap that 149.51. You're splitting hairs. So really, really nice. TA is always being respected, guys. It's just a matter of if you're paying attention to it and taking your time. Not just there's a guy on my Twitter, super great guy, really likes Matic. All he keeps talking about is I want to buy it at $1 because I think it might not get to 70 cents or 80 cents. And that alone right there, that mentality is going to have you guys averaging in at, areas you shouldn't be buying and more for lack of a better term. So that's really all I've got. I won't drone on too long. We'll keep this somewhat reasonably length. I think we've been on here for a while.
Hitting the hour mark.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah. Nice update, gentlemen. Yeah, we knew that this week was going to be a big one coming into it. Obviously, we had the 1-to-1 yesterday, elections today. We got CPI data hitting on Thursday. Friday, there's probably something. Either way, time wise, this was a big week, and we knew it coming into it. So very, very nice to see, some volatility across the board. If you all enjoyed this, I know we were looking and we had quite a bit of people watching, about 30 people in here. I think we have 16 likes. If you don't mind hitting the like button, if you did like the content we bring to you every single day. We do this Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Obviously, it's recorded for anybody to watch back. If you're interested in joining the Leading Crypto Discord server, the information for that is in our information box below. We do hold live trading sessions, as Max and Magic alluded to, that they did one either it was just last night, and then the morning before. We got another one this week as well. We do 2 exclusive member-only market updates, Wednesday nights and Sunday nights after the weekly close. And then you get access to all of our analysis and ideas, and we got a slew of active traders in the group as well. So pretty good time to be in there. Feel free to come in there into the public area as well, and drop any kind of requests if you'd like to see something, or if you got any questions. We're always in there, pretty active. Aside from that, to our non-sponsor, Huel, thank you for bringing this video to everybody. And have a great day, everybody. Enjoy your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in this beautiful world. And until next time, cheers.